All right, David Hooper here with another episode of the Music Business Radio Behind the Scenes podcast. Had another episode of the regular Music Business Radio today, and that's what I'm here to talk about. It was with Walt Aldridge, and if you go to allmusic.com and you type in his name, you will see there are 403 credits. Donnie Marie, Billy Ray Cyrus, Peter Cetera, Reba McEntire, Jody Messina, Trisha Walker, Tim McGraw, just all over the place. He's from Florence, Alabama. That's where he is now. That's where he was born. And for those of you who don't know, Florence, Alabama actually has quite a rich musical heritage. There was something down there, and it's still down there actually, called Fame Studios. Fame Studios, home to Dobie Gray, Clarence Carter, Candy Stanton, Billy Ocean, Wild Cherry. Remember Play That Funky Music? Well, the follow-up album, Walt worked on that. Got a lot of great stories. Let me kind of give you an idea of what he's done. He's a musician, singer, songwriter, engineer, and producer. Wrote a song called There's No Gettin Over Me. Ronnie Milsap cut it in 1981. Huge crossover hit. Holding Her and Loving You, Earl Thomas Conley. Modern Day Bonnie and Clyde by Travis Tritt. He wrote that. I Loved Her First. It was recorded by Heartland. And these songs, a lot of them have been recorded by many people. He's had dozens of hit country songs. Those that I just mentioned all went to number one. He also charted 7 times with a band called The Shooters. They were signed to Epic Records, and if you go look up The Shooters on YouTube, you'll see people still love these guys. And he's done a lot. He's been cut by Lou Reed. I mean, pretty unique stuff, not just country music here, although Conway Twitty is in there. He's the only guy who's been cut by both Conway Twitty and Lou Reed. How is that? So anyway, had Walt come in. He came in from Florence, Alabama. It's just a couple hours away. Mentioned Fame Studios down there, so he had a lot of studio stories. Talked about how he got his job there after college as just an intern. He stayed there for 17 years. And, of course, had his career in Nashville as an artist, as a songwriter. Talked about the move to Nashville. We talked about getting his first cut. He had a pretty funny story about the cut I mentioned by Ronnie Milsap. Ronnie wasn't the original guy that he was trying to get that to, and had kind of a funny story about how to get attention for your song, and I'll let you hear the episode for that. We talked about the then and now of the music business. There's a lot of things that we talk about when people come in on the show, and we talk about how they're changing, what's changing, especially with a guy like Walt that's been in the business for so long. It's like, well, this is how it used to be, and this is how it is now. But one of the things that I asked him was what's not changing. So he's got some really great advice. He's seen it for years. These are some of the things that are not changing that you can use today, whether you're a musician, whether you're in the music business like me, not an active musician, or maybe just a hobbyist. You think you're a writer and you've got a good song, you want to become in the music business. Well, that's a great opportunity. We talked about filters, good songs, how do you know? We talked about just some kind of diversions. I mean, he didn't want to be an artist. He wanted to be a studio musician, and what happened when he walked in and found out how good those players are, and how he ended up in this songwriting and also the performing track. We, of course, reviewed demos. We've got some great stuff here by Peter Bradley Adams. He was with a duo in Nashville called East Mountain South, and is now up in New York. We reviewed his new stuff. Bill Parton sent something in from Australia. And also Rivulets. Sometimes I can't read these names. We have to verify them. And they're from Duluth, Minnesota. We made those guys Demo Derby reviews today. Talked about what new artists need to know. I thought that was really important because as an artist, as somebody who has produced artists, Walt certainly had a lot of vision, we'll say, for what artists who are coming up need to know. Sometimes these young artists, they don't know these things, and that was kind of an interesting conversation. You know, they get really kind of caught up with talking to the labels and these A&R guys and these studio guys and people that they think know better than them. They don't trust their own judgment. So we talked about how to kind of work with that and the pros and cons of that. We also talked about working with your family, and I think this is great. I know there are a lot of brother bands, I'll call them, like if you're working with your siblings, or it could be sisters or brother-sister acts. A lot of times people are working with their parents, like family bands, and we've certainly heard the stories of Oasis, I think, is legendary about this. The Van Halen brothers, legendary. Some of these guys that are related to each other, the Whispers, the Beach Boys, just these guys that come up with these family dynamics. And we talked about that because Walt is actually producing his daughter Hannah, and we talked about kind of setting the studio environment so you can be creative and how to work these things out without all the drama. He said you cannot create in the middle of a fight. And that's just a few of the things. We had a lot to cover in only 54 minutes. We're going to definitely have to bring Walt in. He's got some great songs that he's written that we talked about, the stories behind writing them, the stories behind getting them cut, certainly a lot of the stuff that happened in the studio and his advice. And he is working, actually, believe it or not, if you were in Alabama, in the Shoals area, at University of Northern Alabama. So if you're down there and if you want this kind of mentoring, you can actually work with him. He's been in the music business so long, really, I think he enjoys mentoring people. That's what he said. And we talked about passing the baton on to new people. They're either going to pry it from you or you can pass it over. And he's decided to pass it over. So if you're interested in that, you can just search for Walt Aldridge, or if you're near UNA, you can go down there and you can take a class from him. He teaches a Pro Tools class, just some other stuff that I think is great. Because, again, this guy's an engineer. He's a studio guy. He has been a touring act. He's a songwriter. He's been an artist himself. And that really kind of gives you a lot of perspective, you know, when you can look at it from a publishing point of view. He's been in publishing. When you can look at it from a guitar player's point of view, when you can look at it from an artist's point of view. That's one of the reasons he's been so successful. It told me, 5,000 or 6,000 songs. So quite amazing. 400 and something cuts on allmusic.com. So if you're interested in hearing this episode, it is being edited and will be available soon. We got the holiday coming up. That may delay it a little bit, but you can watch for it online at musicbusinessradio.com. Certainly, if you're in the Nashville area, and a lot of listeners are, Lightning 100 WRLT, our flagship station, every Sunday and Monday nights we do Music Business Radio. So check us out there. But for most people listening, musicbusinessradio.com. Thank you very much for listening. Appreciate you guys. And if you're interested in sending us music to be reviewed on Dave's Demo Derby, let me give you the address real quick. You can send it to Music Business Radio, and you'll send it via Tuned In Broadcasting, Inc., which is the parent company. And here's the address: 1310 Clinton Street, like President Clinton, 1310 Clinton Street, Suite number 200, Nashville, Tennessee, 37203. Again, that's Tuned In Broadcasting, Inc. Just send it to me at Music Business Radio, 1310 Clinton Street, Suite 200, Nashville, Tennessee, zip code 37203. Really like if you send something a little bit more than the CD. I want some bios, some handwritten notes, so I can really talk you up. Make sure you give us your website so we can announce that on the air. My job is to make you look good and get people over your way. Appreciate you sending this stuff in. We love to review it, and I will talk to you on the next episode of the Behind the Scenes Music Business Radio podcast. See you soon.